Hello and welcome. My name is Michael Ullman. I'm the developer of InfoBiz Academy, a course designed to help you build and grow your own information products business. As part of the course, we do weekly live training sessions. In this video, I've excerpted about 35 minutes from one of our recent live training sessions where we addressed some questions that had come up in our private Facebook mastermind group revolving around the changes with Google's AdWords keyword tool, what we use it for, what to use in place of it, and how to achieve the results we're trying to achieve now that Google has taken away much of the functionality. So thanks for sitting in. I hope you find this video worthwhile. If you would like more information about the course, you can visit us at infobizacademy.net.
Q&A, questions and answers for Q3. Here we're going to go through some of the common questions that have been asked. Basically what I did was I compiled some of the things that are asked of me on some of the Skype coaching calls, posted in the Facebook group, the things that I hear repeatedly or frequently or both. Clearly, these are things that many of us, if not all of us, are questioning or dealing with or unsure about, and so hopefully everyone can benefit from them. And by putting a bunch of them together at once, hopefully we can get everybody moving forward or at least stimulate your thinking and direction. So with that, let's dive in, shall we? Question number one, what's up with Google's keyword tool? And this is one that we have kind of a part one and part two. What's up with Google's keyword tool, and what should I use to validate instead of Google keyword tool? A little background for those of you that maybe haven't reached this point or don't know what I'm talking about or it doesn't apply to you yet. As part of the process of developing and bringing to market an information product, we start with the idea phase. Many of us start this process with an idea in mind already. Excuse me. If not, or often even if we have an idea, we go through a process of brainstorming and research to either try to refine our idea or come up with that initial idea. That's the first step. Before we go anywhere with that idea, we always want to validate it. I use the term validate. What I mean by that is take some steps to ensure that before we take that next step and really start devoting some time, energy, and resources into development of a product, that we do what we can to ensure that it's going to work. And by work, I mean that there's a market and people in that market will buy it, right? It makes no sense to pursue an idea and go through the motions of either writing content or outsourcing or acquiring it, curating it, whatever the case may be. Going through that process, creating maybe an ebook cover and a sales page, maybe even a little blog around the topic or a product in specific, only to find out down the road that nobody's interested, or people are interested but not willing to buy it, or any one of a number of other gotchas that we can encounter that really would be advantageous to know ahead of time. So whenever I develop a new product, before I go past the idea stage, I go through a process to try to validate it. And this is in the training. One of the initial primary tools we used to use is Google Keyword Tool in order to gauge the search volume for phrases that describe our product. And I'll give you an example. One of the products that I've used in case studies and used in the webinar and use kind of as a placeholder example was the Ayurvedic diet cookbook that I created a few years ago. It was an idea that came across my radar almost by accident. I'd heard the term, didn't know what it meant, Googled it, found out that it's an ancient Eastern discipline and philosophy of health and medicine and dieting. And it came across my radar because there was a talk show, Dr. Oz, a very popular medical talk show in the U.S. That was talking about it and extolling its virtues and benefits. And I realized this was something not a lot of people had heard of, but because it showed up on Dr. Oz, all of a sudden a lot of people would be interested in looking, kind of like the Oprah effect. When she talks about something, a lot of people all of a sudden jump on board. So it sounded to me like an ideal opportunity, something that was going to suddenly trend that people weren't really familiar with. Anyway, so I went through the process of checking it out to see if, in fact, people were starting to look for it. And the first thing I did was go to Google Keyword Tool and type in the phrases that could describe the product. Those phrases included Ayurvedic diet, Ayurvedic dieting, Ayurvedic cookbook. Don't worry if you don't recognize the word. It's actually Indian word for this idea. What it told me was basically that people were, in fact, searching for information about it. So it's not the be-all and end-all of validating something, but it does give me that first reference point of whether or not there's a large enough number of people searching that there might be a market. In other words, if I had typed it into Google Keyword Tool and I found 0 or very few searches, then that should tell me right away, put the brakes on. This is not necessarily as good an idea as it seemed. Don't go to the time and expense and trouble devoted to developing a product because it doesn't look like there's going to be a market. Alternately, I may see a fair number of searches for different ways to say it or describe it, particularly if they're trending up. That tells me, in fact, there is a market. There are people looking for that information, and I can then go further, at least maybe through some additional validation points. Okay, point of all this is that over the spring and summer, Google changed its policy on its keyword tool. I'm going to try to jump out here to, oh dear, we're not changing screens. We weren't changing screens. What should I use to validate? And there were 2 of them. It was, let me see if I can go backwards. Whoops. Yeah, what's up with Google's keyword tool? And what should I use to validate instead of Google Keyword Tool? I apologize for that paused, stalled screen. Hopefully it's advancing for everybody now. Let me see if I can't pull that up because I had it. Let's see. Whoops. Bring this over here. Okay. What you should be looking at now is Google Keyword Planner within Google AdWords. And this is what we used to use to get search volume numbers. Right? Those of you who have been around for a while know or have been doing this for a while, particularly taking advantage of Google's keyword tool, knows it's changed a lot over the last few years. It's now Google Keyword Planner, but it's the same idea. One of the options is get search volume and trends. Right? We go there and we type in our phrase. In this case, Ayurvedic diet and Ayurvedic, whoops, health. Whoops, Ayurvedic. Spelling it right is always helpful. And I'm going to click Get Search Volume. And lo and behold, what I see is not the expected number of searches, which I see down here kind of in the middle, where it says average monthly searches and competition. Right? Instead, I'm seeing a range, 1,000 to 10,000 and 10 to 100. Non-specific ranges. Here's the deal. Google no longer provides that information, at least on a granular level, unless you have a very high-spending AdWords account and active campaigns using those keywords. In other words, for you and I, the people who typically took advantage of using the AdWords keyword tool but didn't necessarily use AdWords or used it with a relatively modest budget, Google will no longer tell us how many searches a phrase gets, right? Ayurvedic diet here, it's telling me 1,000 to 10,000 a range. That's a pretty wide range. It's a pretty broad range, right? It's unfortunate, but hey, look, Google's been giving us tons of really good, actionable free info for a long, long time. Everybody knew the party would end at some point, and it's been ending in stages for many years. Google historically offered some great free stuff, and then over time would kind of throttle back the amount and type and degree of information that was available for free. Look, we're not entitled to that information. Google is a business. There's nothing that says, excuse me, they have to provide us with that info, although a lot of people have gotten used to it and taken advantage of it and built entire industries on the free information that Google provides. Unfortunately, that part of this party is over. So for most of us, we're now only going to be able to get ranges. Now, that's still useful. It's not as useful as more specific numbers would be, but I can still get an idea. For instance, Ayurvedic diet, 1,000 to 10,000 monthly searches, tell me there's a pretty healthy number of people typing that in. Ayurvedic health, on the other hand, much lower volume, 10 to 100. Right? So we can still use the Google keyword tool for this purpose. It's just not as exact. But the truth of the matter is we didn't necessarily need it to be exact. And we can still leverage things like Google Trends to see if that's changing over time. Is it static? Is it going up? Or is it going down? But back to the question then, if not Google keyword tools, what would I use instead? And so we're going to look at a couple of alternatives where we can still get that information and some additional ways to validate. For straight search volume, number of times a word or a phrase is searched is searched per month, I still use SEO Book keyword tool and SERP's keyword tool. I'm going to show you what both of those look like. Hopefully, if I can pull it over there. Let's see if this works. Bear with me a moment. Okay. You're looking at SERPs.com. And if we go to Tools and Keyword Research Database here, whoops, on the right, use Tool, I can still get that information. So we'll type in Ayurvedic, because we're using this as the example. Whoops, and you can see I already typed that in, Ayurvedic food. Did I want to do that? I actually want to do Ayurvedic diet. And let's search. Okay, now I'm getting some exact search exact, come on, I sort in reverse. Not only am I getting exact search volume numbers, and by the way, these are never exact. Even when they were exact, they weren't exact. Even when Google was giving us the maximum info they would give us, there were still ranges, which is why we would often see numbers like 1,200, 3,600, 8,200, etc. But they were more precise than 1,000 to 10,000. Here we're getting the same thing. So I can see Ayurvedic diet, for an example, gets 6,600 monthly searches. Right? So I can still validate using search volume. Since I mentioned it's not exact, and if we go back to look at tool number 2, it's actually reversed order. We looked at SERPs.com first. SEObook.com is the tool of choice for me, even when I could use or could get that info from Google's AdWord tools. Let's take a look at that. It's SEObook.com. You will need an account, but the accounts are free. Whoops, and you can see I already typed it in. Ayurvedic, we did Ayurvedic food. So let me go back and we'll compare apples to apples. So on SERPs.com, let's do Ayurvedic food and see what it tells us. 170 searches per month. If I look at SEO Book tool, it says 204. One thing to keep in mind, SEO Book is giving us a combined Google plus Bing and Yahoo search numbers. It's also breaking down daily search numbers. Right? So for me, it's a more granular result. I've also found it to be more accurate. By comparing, for instance, Google searches with Bing searches, it gives me a little bit of a reality check. And personally, you know, without having to do the math, I like to see the number of daily searches rather than just a monthly aggregate. So SEObook.com, if you go there, you want to create an account. Accounts are free, it's join free. Go to Tools, Keyword Tool, and that's where you'll get this information. Ayurvedic diet, which will have a higher search volume. Let's see what it says. Whoops, there we go, search. Okay, 79. So you'll notice it's not as rounded a number because they're taking a daily search number and multiplying it. And keep in mind, these two numbers, remember, are a combination of Google and Bing. 220 from Google, 44 from Bing. That gives us the 264. Multiply that by 30, and we get the monthly 7920. So these are two alternatives to, excuse me, the Google keyword tool for search volume. But I want to take this a step further, right? Because the real question was, or I should say the intent of the question isn't just, excuse me, something in my throat, wasn't just where can we get that number from. It's what can we use to validate our ideas. And validation goes beyond just there's viable search volume. So I want to mention two tools that I use an awful lot for a lot of things, among them market research and market intelligence, which is what validating is. And that's Keyword Spy and BuzzSumo. Keyword Spy is at keywordspy.com. BuzzSumo is at buzzsumo.com, both of which are either free or offer free trials. So let's take a look at those. If we can jump over there, I think I have them up. We'll go in reverse order again. This is Keyword Spy. Let me get to the top here. Okay, this is what it looks like. Not only do they offer a free trial, but they offer free accounts just like SEO Book, where you sign up and the free account gives you, 85% of the kind of functionality we would be looking for nothing. And it's an unlimited forever free account, right? So you can get this info either without signing in or getting a little more info by creating a free account that never expires and gives you most of the information. Anyway, so let's see what happens when we type in Ayurvedic diet search. And I'm going to point out an important distinction here in a moment. Okay. This is a tool meant for pay-per-click advertising, right? So it focuses around pay-per-click functions. Notice it's giving me a search volume of 18,000 a month. Very different than I got from SEO Book, 7,000 a month. Right? What's the difference? What's the discrepancy? Two things to keep in mind. Number one, Google has separate databases for AdWords and for search, so that the data that AdWords advertisers get is coming from a different database than what they use for analytics and add up for search volume. That's number one. Number two, one of the other big changes that happened recently with AdWords is that they got rid of the idea of exact match types. What an exact match type is, and what it means, is a literal usage of the phrase you type in. So if I type in Christmas tree to get the search volume, the exact match for Christmas tree gives me only how many times that phrase was typed in exactly as is, nothing before it, nothing after it, etc. There are other match types like phrase and broad, where typing in Christmas tree will also give me the number of searches for Christmas trees, plural, or how to decorate a Christmas tree, phrases broader than just Christmas tree. Well, Google, in its infinite wisdom, decided that that was a flawed system. And the main reason is, if you were an AdWords advertiser, very often, if you were looking to see what it would cost to advertise, and if you looked at something like Christmas tree, you might find that buying the phrase Christmas tree cost, I don't know, just pull a number out of a hat, $3 per click, but Christmas trees, plural, only cost 50 cents a click, right? Now, clearly, that's an error in how Google figures and calculates and estimates, etc., but it happened a lot. What Google decided is that AdWords advertisers were sniping for the lowest cost phrase, even though they were getting the same searches, or many of them, and Google realized that if you're advertising on the phrase Christmas tree, you probably actually also want people who are searching Christmas trees. So they got rid of exact match and replaced it with what they call close variants. Right? So there's no more exact match within AdWords. You can't buy the clicks for Christmas tree, but not Christmas trees, plural. Instead, you can bid on Christmas tree, but that includes close variants like plurals. There are pluses and minuses. We won't go into too many of the thickets of that, other than to say that's why we see a discrepancy here on SEO Book. Monthly searches of 7920 for Ayurvedic diet, yet in Keyword Spy, the same phrase, we're seeing a little more than double that. Because Keyword Spy is pulling from Google AdWords database, and it's including close variants. For our purposes, that's actually more valuable, right? Because what we're trying to determine when we validate an idea is how many people are looking for that information and trying to figure out what specific phrase we may miss a lot of those people, and as a result estimate wrong, make an incorrect judgment as to whether an idea is viable. By including close variants, we don't have to worry about, well, how many ways would somebody be looking for what I'm going to produce, what I want to produce, this Ayurvedic diet cookbook. They'll take care of that and give me the answer I really want, which is not how many people are searching for the exact literal phrase Ayurvedic diet. What I'm really looking for is how many people are looking for information about that topic or that idea. Okay, so Keyword Spy is a great tool for that. Not only that, because it's focused on paid advertisers, it gives us ads that are currently being run using that phrase, URLs of people that are advertising and typically have a product in that area. So it gives me a much fuller, more robust assessment of the market than just search volume. Which brings us to that next tool, BuzzSumo.com, one of my favorite go-to tools for a lot of things. Let's pull it up here. Where are we? Come on, BuzzSumo. There we go. BuzzSumo. Fantastic site and app, and they offer a ton of really worthwhile free stuff. Let's see what happens if we type in Ayurvedic diet and say go. It's going to give us a much more appropriate and effective result. What BuzzSumo does is it gives us essentially social, not search volume, but how many people are talking about it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, how many times is it being shared, how many times is it being posted, how many times is it being talked about, right? And if my purpose is to discern the viability of an idea, how marketable my idea is, this gives me much better information. It also allows me to zero in and get a lot more accurate. If I notice, for Ayurvedic diet, the top most popular posts and articles are all coming from one domain, joyfulbelly.com. Right? That may be misleading. This is a site that happens to revolve around Ayurveda. I happen to know that because I created a product in that space. What BuzzSumo lets me do is filter on domains. I'm going to exclude joyfulbelly.com. Okay. And now I can see a more accurate and broader assessment of the market. See, none of these are now all different websites that are publishing or posting information, how often it's being shared, and engagement, by the way, doesn't mean just shared. It means shared or liked or clicked on. What kind of engagement it's getting on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, etc. So I can get a much broader, more robust sense of whether there's a market for the product I'm considering. And so for me, it has become the go-to tool when I'm trying to validate an idea. Because really, how many web pages there are, how many searches there are for a web page, that tells me one thing. A much more accurate assessment is what kind of social engagement, how many people are talking about it, sharing it, liking it, clicking it. It gives me a much fuller, much more realistic sense of what sort of interest there is. So this has become my go-to tool for not just validating, but exploring a market. If I have this idea, before I go any further, not only do I want to validate it, I want to explore what are similar and related um, um, phrases, terms, websites, ideas between Keyword Spy and BuzzSumo. I can get really good snapshots of that information. And just as with Keyword Spy, I can drill down on, in the case of Keyword Spy, the advertiser, the actual ads themselves, the domains. BuzzSumo, I can do the same thing, but for the actual posts and articles that are being shared or liked or retweeted, etc. So if we circle back around to the idea behind these questions, these are my two go-to tools for validating and exploring and extrapolating from that info. Okie doke. Oh, and I wanted to throw this in here. Excuse me. We talk a lot about validating because it's important, right? You know, no, I can't tell you, I can tell you because I've done it, how frustrating it is to go through the process of coming up with an idea and building a product, especially those times, and I'm not immune to this, when an idea comes to mind, I have an idea or come across something, and I am sure it's a great idea. I am certain, rock solid, this thing's going to fly. I can just skip, leapfrog that whole validation step because I know this is a great idea and it's going to fly. Right? I've done that, and I've done that and went through the time and effort and money and resources, and it's been a flop. Yes, you heard me say it. Even I have produced flops. I've produced plenty of flops. It's what happens when we get sloppy or overconfident or make bad assumptions or think we know better than the market. It happens. Even with the validation steps that we take, those are not perfect predictors. All they are able to do is tell me whether there appears to be a market of people interested in the idea, and depending on how we go about our validation, the product. There's only one sure, 100% foolproof, certain way to know if there's a market, and that's to go out and see if there's a market. In other words, the only way to know for sure is to do it, right? Is to get out there with the product and see if it actually sells. After all, that's what we're trying to find out. If I build this thing, will it sell? The only way to know with 100% certainty is to try to sell it and see if it sells. Except we can simulate that while still not going through all of the time, effort, resources, etc. And here's how. We create an ad as if we had went through the process and we're trying to sell it. Right? So this is an ad that I had run for Ayurveda Cookbook before I actually went through and created this thing. Obviously, this isn't the exact ad. I'm mocking it up in PowerPoint. But I ran ads saying, Ayurveda Cookbook, $17, fantastic new cookbook, etc. Excuse me, click here. This was before I'd actually produced it. And when you clicked there, you got to a landing page that initially said, hey, thanks so much for your interest. We're hard at work finishing up the book. Please give us your email, and we'll let you know when it's done. Later, I replaced that with a landing page that said, we're shipping in this amount of time, and went to a payment page. What this does is tell me with certainty, would people buy it? If nobody clicked on it and I were advertising it properly, using the right phrases, that tells me the people with interest had interest but not interest in buying this thing. If people clicked, the only reason you would click on this ad is either to learn more about this product for sale because you're interested, or actually buying it. So it's kind of a pre-sale test. I ran these ads before I had started producing the product. I spent, I don't know, maybe 65 bucks. That 65 bucks told me with certainty whether people would buy it. Now, I wasn't expecting to get hundreds of clicks asking to buy the book. Right? All I needed to know was, of the people who were searching on that term, was some percentage interested enough to want to buy or at least consider buying my product before I produced it. So this is the ultimate validation method, and once you get to the point where your business is profitable, you always do this before you proceed, because this is the closest we can ever come to a certain answer, knowing for sure whether our idea will sell. And the 25 or 50 or 75 bucks you spend to get that information is well worth it. You save a lot more than going ahead and producing something and not knowing for sure. So once you're making some money, you always want to run some ads to test an idea, the next idea, before going further. Let's move on.